Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This happened a few years ago, right after I graduated college. I would make an 8-hour drive home a few times a year to see family, usually over the holidays. During these trips, there was only wilderness, fields, mountains, and tiny towns along the way. During one of these trips, I stopped at a gas station to get some food and I apparently lost my debit card, or it was stolen. It was a card I never used and looked identical to my main one, so I didn't notice it was missing until later when I got a call from my bank and I saw my account was overdrafted. Being fresh out of college, making $12 per hour, the $400 was a huge deal. I worked at a credit card processor at the time, so I had a very unusual familiarity with how credit card transactions worked. This was a debit card but ran as credit. I could have done a chargeback, of course, but I knew that merchants were fined $15 for each chargeback on top of the return, and got a ding on the record with Visa, MasterCard, and Amex. If they had too many chargebacks, they would have their processing revoked and incur heavy fines. Merchants are usually mom-and-pop shops and are usually innocent in the matter, so I decided to give them a call. Also, the charges all came from the same gas station that I lost it at, so I suspected it was an employee who found/stole my card and was stupid enough to use it at work. I wanted to let the manager and owner know so they could keep an eye out for unscrupulous employees. Employee theft is unfortunately common and is not brought to light until a customer brings it up. I thought I would just give them a call and ask for the refund. Easy. I call and a woman answers. I asked to speak with a manager and she says she is a manager. I explained that I had lost my card at that location and someone had later used my card there. I said I didn't want to accuse anyone, but I think one of her employees had the card and she may want to investigate. I also said I'd like a return for all the purchases to save them the hassle of a chargeback. When I usually work with managers in this situation, they are very willing to help and take employee theft very seriously. Instead, I am met with hostility and insults. She told me I probably deserved it for losing my card in the first place and not noticing, and I deserved this lesson. She interrupted me and told me to basically go screw myself and none of her employees would steal. Getting a bad feeling, I asked for the number of the owner. She says there is no owner. What? By now I'm shaking in anger, so I tell her I'm calling the police and hang up. She tries to call back and I don't answer. By now I am angry crying. I have a feeling I know who did it, but now I need to prove it. I had no intention of calling the cops because what cops care about some petty credit card theft? It's incredibly hard to prove and most cops have murder and crap to worry about. Lucky for me, this is in the middle of nowhere, population 100 or something. So first I call my bank and ask if they have a record of the exact times the card was used, and they gave me the times down to the minute. I then call the police and get a very friendly woman, and it seems she's not busy and actually listens to my story, including the hostile manager. I ask if she's able to go look at the surveillance tapes or something. She says the store is 5 minutes away and she will stop by. I guess she felt sorry for me or was bored, but I'll take it. She says she will give me a call if she finds anything. I eagerly awaited her call but was not expecting much. A couple days go by and I get a call from the nice officer lady. She says that she went by the store and reviewed the footage. At the exact time I told her, the cameras caught the hostile manager making the purchases, signing receipts for the exact same amounts with a card that looked exactly like mine. Even better, they were going to charge her with felony identity theft, since making purchases on someone's card without permission is practically identity theft on top of monetary theft, at least in my state. They asked if I wanted any restitution, but my bank had refunded me the stolen money, so I declined. I was absolutely not expecting a cop to go out of their way to help me, and I was definitely not expecting it to result in any arrest. I felt a sense of pride for actually sticking up for myself and not just taking the money from my bank and letting the thief go. I'm a pretty small and non-confrontational person, but that day I felt really strong. If she'd been nice and worked with me, or even just apologized and done the returns, I wouldn't have called the cops. But because she was so rude and unhelpful, she got a felony instead. I worked in a haunted corn maze this year. Basically, we dress up and scare anyone who walks through. It was all COVID safe and approved. All workers have to wear a mask, obviously, and dress up as something scary. I was dressed up as a little dick girl, but I got called a doll. Not the point. It was one of our slow nights, Wednesday or Thursday, and it was like the last 30 minutes. Now I was tired, hungry, sweaty, and dirty as hell as I crawled on the ground. I just wanted to get home. I heard someone walking towards my area and hid like I normally did. Now mind you, no one is supposed to hide in a corn, pick up the corn and especially not throw the corn. Only the workers are allowed to hide. We aren't even allowed to walk through the corn to get out. We have to follow the path. So I hid in a corn, and I heard corn being ripped from a stalk. You know the sound after hearing it constantly from kids and other workers taking the low-hanging ones off. I immediately stepped out, ready to be blunt with the person, and see a woman with 4 kids. The youngest was probably 5 and the oldest was probably 16 or 17, something like that. I say, you can't touch the corn. Whatever you have, put down and continue on the path. If you're, don't tell my kid what to do, little girl. Her big kid says, sorry, we didn't know. And he proceeds to remove the corn from the little one hands. Don't listen to her. She's just a stupid kid. I'm taking this home to cook. And she proceeds to stuff corn into purse and starts walking over, dragging one of the other kids with her. Ma'am, first off, you can't take corn from the maze, and second off, it's not gonna taste good. If you don't get out of my face, I will call the cops on you for harassing me and my children. Listen, lady, I've tried being nice. Remove the corn from your purse, or I'll have security escort you out. She then pushes me. I'm in a dress in the cold, do that full hurt. And she walks away almighty-like. The big kid helped me up and apologized profusely for his mom before walking over and trying to get the corn from her purse. I had enough when I saw her smack his head and scream at him. I immediately got through the corn. I didn't care at the moment and headed to my co-worker's area. That day I didn't bring my whistle given to us in case of emergencies, so I asked him to follow her out the corn maze. We are supposed to follow suspicious people like kids constantly going into the corn, people we think are drunk and so on. It's a weird area I live in. So Jay, my co-worker, followed her out of the corn maze, I think, so I was fine with it. Had her warning given, and then she would be off on her merry way. Nope. The siren rang for us to get out and pack up our stuff, so I followed one of the paths I knew out and was instantly bombarded. I got pulled aside by security as Karen was screaming and crying about how a child was harassing her and her angels, and she had a creepy pedophilic man follow her out, and she's never felt so unsafe in her life, and she wanted me arrested for causing trauma to her kids. Last bet my friend heard her crying off about while I was being spoken to, so security asked me what happened. They knew me as a weird worker who would scream Disney lyrics as she walked in to get ready or show up randomly in a onesie, and asked who escorted her out and blah blah. So I asked her kids not to touch the corn. She didn't listen and even started packing corn into her purse to eat later. Security gave a gross look. This corn is not meant for human consumption. Then her big kid steps in. Please don't listen to my mom. She's just being hysterical again. Nothing like that happened except the creepy guy part. I don't know if he's a worker or not, but my younger brother did rip corn from a corn stalk and she was just doing her job. The younger kid says, Mommy told me to, so I can have some since it's free. Crazy Karen is away from us, currently crying into the owner's sweater. Jay finally walks out of the corn maze, probably helping the other guards take out trash, and tilts his head confused. Jay was wearing a clown mask and was a chainsaw guy who ran after people with a chainsaw that had no chain. The big kid says, "That's the dude." I say, "Oh, I asked him to follow y'all out. I didn't feel safe following y'all out because of your mother, and I wanted to make sure y'all didn't do anything like that again." Jay walks over and looks at me confused. Jay usually worked with me so I could tell his facial features by the slight movements of his body. Crazy Karen says, "Oh my god, he's the one who stalked me and my children. He's probably some pervert who walks around here to kidnap little kids like the disgusted 30-year-old he is." Now this woman had annoyed me to the point I wanted to hit her butt. I started dying laughing, like to the point I couldn't breathe anymore. Why? Well, Jay was a 16-year-old kid whose mom was a friend of the owner's and several older workers. Karen was losing her mind, confused on why I was laughing and why the sheriffs weren't arresting me and taking me to Rikers Island. Security says, "Jay, he's a worker here, and he's 16. Now she's going crazy about how they hire human traffickers here and that we were all in it and they were lying, until Jay removed his mask and face mask to show how young she looked. I had gotten to the point where I was using my dress to wipe off my makeup because I was feeling gross. Karen was basically standing around staring at all of us confused on why nobody was listening to her, and I grinned. Well, as I stated earlier, ma'am, please remove all the corn in your position or I will have security escort you out, or maybe your cup of tea is a sheriff. And Karen is now banned from the corn maze premise for as long as I work there, and I intend on working there for a very long time. Once I worked for this lady who owned a home health agency, and I was running it for her. At first it was not that bad. Margaret liked me and had me doing a lot of things that maybe went above my pay grade, but I didn't mind so much because I was learning a lot and it didn't involve any direct patient care. In 2014, when I first started, she had an LVN named Nina. She and I got along quite well, and we were good work buddies. Sometimes patients would go to her office and she would shut the door. I don't know why she bothered to do that when it was obvious that she was admitting them. I wasn't exactly comfortable with that because you are supposed to be an RN, but at least she was a nurse. After it turned into 2015 though, boss Margaret decided to put Nina out in the field, so I was the only one in the office. Shortly after that happened, Margaret caught me on my break and said, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor. There is a patient in your office and I need you to take his vitals and write down all his meds and put him in the system." I said, "Margaret, are you actually trying to get me to admit this guy? That is so far out of my scope of practice that I would lose my massage license and maybe go to jail." "Oh, come on. You know you can't do it. You have the knowledge and experience." I said, "You can try to flatter me all you want, but I'm not doing it. You are an RN. Why don't you do it so nobody gets in trouble with the state?" She said, "Okay, I will give you a $50 bonus for every one of those you do." I said, "Really? $50? Wow, okay then, I'm in." I asked her how exactly I was to come up with diagnosis, though with no MD report. She said to just Google the meds and see what they are prescribed for and get the diagnosis from that. That is so illegal, I almost called my mom to ask her to put money in my commissary. So anyway, I did end up doing it that one time, but I knew I had to outsmart her for ethics' sake, or I would have been stuck doing those for the rest of eternity and probably end up with legal problems for a $50 a pop. I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what that was. Finally, I decided to deliberately make an error. The patient said he was on gabapentin. I know what that is, and I also know why it's prescribed. It could be for multiple reasons, usually pain or anxiety, so I put down seizure disorder, the rarest problem it's prescribed for. But Margaret saw what I had put in. She started yelling at me. You know that's for neuropathy, nerve pain. I said, well, I don't know that exactly. There are a bunch of uses for gabapentin and seizure codes other than neuropathy ones, don't they? According to the coding guide, they do. I know how important it is for you to make you more money, right? And guess what? I noticed that more than half of our patients are taking that, so I went back and changed all their diagnoses to say seizure disorder and exported all the corrected assessments to the state already. Aren't you proud of me? Of course I did nothing of the sort. She literally lost her wig. And she screamed, "Do you have any idea how many ADRs I'm going to get? It will take forever. I will have to have someone scan every last one of those records and submit them to Medicare. Meanwhile, they won't pay me." Ha! I shrugged and said, well, I'll probably estimate around 50 if the numbers add up. Okay, she screamed, "That's it! I'll never ask you to do that ever again. Now give me that $50 back." Really? Oh no, are you sure? Oof, wow, I'm so sorry I messed up, my bad. I know she saw me laughing at her as I walked away. There were cameras everywhere after all. So at one point in my childhood, my mom was on a mission to get me to eat more fruit. It probably wasn't a terrible idea, but of course at the time I hated it. It felt like a big conspiracy against me because I wanted dessert, foods, and candy. Well, we somehow ended up at IHOP, or as it was once known, International House of Pancakes. We were going over the menu and she noticed the category, Rooty Tooty Fresh and Fruity. Of course, I immediately balked at the idea. I wanted something chocolate instead. I didn't really like the idea of being forced to eat something, but I believe the alternative offered was an egg sandwich at home, so I went with what I could work with. Something I'd already worked out about this place was that it didn't look like the kind of place that would have fresh produce laying around. There were also zero pictures of fresh fruit anywhere in the menu, but rather than point this out, I ordered the strawberry one. So when our orders were dropped off, my mom caught her breath. She saw my pancakes were covered in glazed strawberries. My mom checked with a waitress, and there wasn't anything in it that I was allergic to, aka that corn syrup and red food dye interaction with ADD meds. My mom also didn't have the money to buy me something else and knew the food was going to be wasted. It was canned strawberries, but they were pretty good ones. So basically, I ordered something that basically amounted pie filling on pancakes.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.